Let's introduce yourselves.
Kahari and Haro.
Earth Ojalo.
Danella Martin.
John Coates II.
So tell us a little bit about the show, Kari.
Where'd that second come in? You ain't never said the second.
Let that man be who he is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. We're going to keep
I
this
ain't cut off yet.
So
Okay,
tell the audience about your show.
Kahari Free at Last is very unique. It is a full blast. It is taking and putting urban issues. What it does, it gives the rest of the world a perspective on how we see the world. Issues that matter to us, issues that are important to us. And we have free-ranging discussions. We don't try to put a cap on how people feel. We want that total passion to come out. Because what happens when you go to regular shows, everybody is closed mouth, they're afraid to talk about the issues as they are, and they're really muted. We don't mute here. We allow Donella to go at it, we allow Earth to go at it, we allow Reverend to go at it, they even allow me to go at it from time to time. That's how we see it, because that's how the world is. We don't want to put a cap. We don't want to put a cap on knowledge and information and how we feel. And this is a unique way of bringing, that's why we call it free at last. Because all this time we've been held in bondage in terms of our opinions. Now we're free to express it, and all the frustration and everything that goes with it comes out.
So I want to follow a question on that. Do you think because of your show today versus 10 years ago and the social climate that we have now where you're the D behind your name or R really affects the way your politics or this show
Well,
contribute
shows
to
like
the...
ours drive politics now. Used to be politics drove us. We drive politics because the politicians pay attention to us to see what's going on. And then many of them mimic exactly how we feel, even our style. So we are the ones that drive the agenda. We are the ones that set the stage for what happens in this country. And it shows like this that doesn't.
Okay. So let's talk to the beautiful Miss Earth. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the show.
Well, let me see. I started out in radio with Kahari, of course. Did that for a while. And I have some television experience. I was interviewed by Gayle King, Oprah's best friend, a couple of times for Good Morning America. And then Kahari came with this fancy idea. Oh, I can do this talk show, da da da. I was like, okay, whatever. And it took a while to, get it off the ground or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing TV. He talking stuff. And he came, he's like, we ready. And I was like, I'm ready. So that's how I got into doing the television piece. This show is fun. It's exciting. It's opinionated. It is political. It's truthful. And I have a lot of fun with it. My original background, I come from dance. I'm an artist. And I do narration. I do voiceovers. I'm right now in the middle of finishing up my one-woman play that is due out in the fall. It's called Becoming Her. And so I'm taking that and running with it. And it seems like everybody else is getting on board too. So I'm excited. Yep.
And Miss Della, the same question with you. How did you get started in this industry and how you part of Kari's show?
Well, I blame Earth first because I met Earth and she and when you meet Earth, everything changes. And so she introduced me to Kahari, and then so basically I am the product. With that, at the same time, I would like to, but you've got to come correct. So I think this show is revolutionary because Kahari does not shy from those topics. And even as he's playing devil's advocate, he's always encouraging each and every point of view. He likes it to be confrontational. He likes us to argue and bring that out because that provokes thought. And if anything the Black community needs to do is we need to start thinking.
But he's really not an advocate for the devil. I think he's an advocate for God in his own way. But
and you talked about women, and I have to say that we also have to hold our women accountable because we're not doing everything that we need to do as well. And I do workshops. I'm an inspirational, motivational speaker. And I have a lot of women who get up and walk out of the workshop because we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to be told that that's not it, and we don't want to deal with our issues as women, and I've seen it. So it's both sides of that coin, and learning how to heal so that we can come together and have healthy families, healthy communities, and a healthy nation as Black people.
Well, Kari, Pastor, what do you think? You're the opposite. Tell us the point of view of the male.
Well, I think both are correct. I think as victims of racism, we have suffered a lot, but we haven't had an effective response to racism. And when you blame each other, that's ineffective. So what we have to do is recognize where we are, what we've got to do, and take off all these labels about you supposed to do this, I'm supposed to.
Right.
No, whoever's the most effective is the one that does it. And we should work on treating each other correctly, however that may be defined. But we have to sit down and define it between us and try to work on our language, try to work on how we talk to each other, how we treat each other, how we can control our emotions. I have the saying, minimize conflict and maximize cooperation in order to produce constructive outcomes that solve Black problems. And so what we do is that we don't allow Black thought to be censored. We don't allow it not to come to the surface. I want to hear what Daniela said. She don't have to agree with me. I want to hear what Earth has to say. She don't have to agree with me. I want to hear what John says. He has to agree with me. No, I'm just kidding. But I want to hear what he has to say also. And this is what I push. I'm about getting our message out. I ain't trying to be like somebody else. Because in my mind, we were the ones that set the standard for how everyone else is. And we will continue to set that standard. This is the show that will set the standard for how people think, not only in our community, but how they're going to think around the world. That's what we push here. And we're bold in doing it. That's why you see us get like we get. We're very bold. We don't hold back. We don't believe in that. But we do it in a responsible and a constructive way, but we have fun with it also. We believe humor is very central into pushing forth a new way of thinking and a new message.
I have two more questions. The first question is, what are some of the topics or issues you think that are most important for our community? I watch a lot of political shows, and I'm like, I don't care. I really don't care about Trump.
Yeah.
I care about tariffs. I care about what's going on in our neighborhoods. The fact that we don't have enough policing in our neighborhoods. We don't have enough education about.
Kari free at last. That's exactly what we want.
So tell us what they're on.
John, let me let the other three say something, then I'll close.
Okay.
In reality, the election of Donald Trump is important to the Black community, but in the so-called mainstream media, it has not been presented in a way where Black people can even approach the topic. So it's never been approached properly in mainstream media. Now, on Kahari Free at Last, we talk about it. People ask the question, what would the Trans-Pacific Partnership have to do with the Black community? We take on the issue. We take on the issue of abortion, how that impacts the Black community, and where we stand on it. So we take on all the major issues in a way so that we can argue the different perspectives. And when we argue those perspectives, somebody's at home watching. And we are articulating what maybe they've been thinking about it, but couldn't put all the pieces in the puzzle or didn't know how to say it, or some of the elements that were involved. So what we do in addressing various issues that, be it hair weave to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, are all important. And I wasn't pointing.
We're in the same club.
Lace front.
So what do you think? Yeah.
I think, and the most political, the most revolutionary political thing that Black people can do, in my opinion, is control who they have children by. Control childbirth, control the family structure. It's how, when you look at people look at Trump, Mike Pence is scarier than Trump. Because what white people did in the 80s, they said, oh my God, we're going to be a minority, So we've got to start bumping up our population, and we've got to ensure that this remains a white country. So what they did was they started having 1 million children. Like, we look at the Duggars and we're laughing and, oh, it's funny, it's entertaining, without realizing that they are a political movement. And they're not saying that, but what they have done is they said, we're going to populate this country with white people. We're going to homeschool the children, particularly the girls. We're going to make it, we're going to keep this biblical tradition where the men remain, the main breadwinners, and keeping it simple. And they're very simple-minded. They have not been exposed to people of color or outside situations. So they're very simple-minded, and they're just here to populate and spread their agenda, which they have done successfully, because now we've got some of the most ignorant politicians who are running the country in history, like Mike Pence and his brood, because that's where he comes from.
Mike Pence is a friend of mine.
That's where he comes. Yes, you
Don't
do have
accept that. Don't accept that.
And they've been quite successful because they have emerged as this innocuous, simple-minded farm folk, but their political agenda was very clear. We need to do the same thing. We need to start taking control of who we're making children with, and we need to start dictating. It starts in the home. Politics starts in the home. That's the most revolutionary thing we can do. Mm-hmm. But we are so out of control because we bring babies in that we're not prepared for, and everything falls apart. And we can never have a political movement where we begin to educate families and move in situations where we need movement, where we need to vote in particular blocks, where we need to be educated on particular points if we're consistently in crisis mode.
Go ahead.
So, for me,
long-winded, I'm sorry.
And what's most important is our children. The children are our future. So putting these families together, healing the black families, healing the wombs that birth the babies,
absolutely,
male and
female.
That's
sure.
Is most important, because right now we need strong families. We need to start teaching our children about entrepreneurship. We need to teach our children about finances and how to manage them and how to build and create generational wealth, so that wealth gap can start to decrease instead of getting wider.
Right.
That is it doesn't get any more important for me. That is the most important, is that we can live in this country and be independent of having to go to a Kroger's, because we have our own neighborhood grocery stores. We have our own corner stores and our own drive-thrus and our own cleaners and our own everything, all the way up to the hospitals, just like it used to be on Black Wall Street. We have to get back to being independent and being able to operate outside of a system that was never created for us in the first place.
The politics are not our politics. We didn't create this. All we are people who are reacting to a system that was imposed on us. What we have to do is find a way to create our own politics, create our own economics, as Irv said. One of the most revolutionary things that I will know when racism is over is if I'm 20% of the population, that I actually control 20% of the total wealth. When I'm 30% of a population, I control less than 1/2 of 1% of the total wealth. And I am totally dependent on other people for everything that's life-giving and life-saving. I'm still a slave. Right? That's the condition of slavery. But until I am able to understand that and come out of that, I'm going to be what Malcolm X called a 20th century, now 21st century slave. That's the key. Is how do we overcome this condition that we're living under day in and day out? That's the key. And until we do it, so I don't get involved in Republican or Democratic. I study both. But I say, where's our politics? Our politics is a completely different brand of politics. Just like some of the issues they were talking about, that's our political agenda. Nobody wants to address that. Even the politicians that we elect, that we think we elect, do not belong to us. Once they get up there, they don't want nothing to do with anything black, too many of them. And therefore, none of your position, none of the things that are important to you really get dealt with like they should. So we have to create a whole new paradigm, a whole new way of thinking about this. Kahari Free at Last and shows like this are on the cutting edge of doing that. That's why we always push it to the point where we say, the status quo won't work for us. How do we know? We've had 400 years. We've been in this country now 400 years exactly on this run. Some say we came here thousands of years ago as explorers and nation builders. But on this run, since 1619 to 2019, 400 years, and yet we still control less than 3% of the total wealth. How does that happen? How does that happen that all over the world, black people on the bottom, no matter what country you go to?
Right.
That's our politics. See, and if nobody's talking about that, then all of the rest of the stuff we have is a bunch of gobbledygook. But that's the agenda that we have to push. And anybody that's in any position that can help us or that wants to deal with that, that's the agenda that we bring to them.
Last question, a little light. I work with a lot of young people, and I'm not in esteem like you all, but I try to give them the best advice I can. What advice would you give to young people now, especially the ones that someone would say they would consider me a social justice? I don't consider myself. I'm a storyteller. I'm just telling stories of my community. What advice would you give young people to carry on and keep in a political role, maybe a social justice, or just a way to keeping our community uplifted?
I would say, number one, tell the truth. Teach them the truth. Teach them from the time that they are children what's going on. Do not lie to them. Do not tell them, oh, we must do this, we must love everybody. Everybody don't love you. There's no such thing as racism. Everything is race-based. Everything in the world. Ask the Chinese. Ask the Koreans. Ask the Germans. Ask the Persians. They all push their racially based agenda. Everybody does that. So to come to me and disarm me and tell me I shouldn't be about race is a con game.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is that you teach the children the truth and you prepare them. Here's why you're going to school. You ain't going to school to be a fool. You're going to school because you're going to need this knowledge to help your people grow and develop. I don't care what they say. You sit up in that school and you get that knowledge. And then you have an ideology for why you bring it home and you develop your community. You don't need to move out to somebody else's community. Develop your own. Have them knocking on the door to come in your community and live. Then you make the decision as to whether they come in. You have to have the power. This is about power. And we run away from that word as a people. I would teach our children power. Think power, get power, understand power, and don't lose power. That's what I think has to be done.
And for me, piggybacking off of him, financial literacy. We don't give our students, male and female, financial literacy and teach them how to be financially free. When we come out of college, we already $50,000+ in debt. I don't want that for our future. I want them to be able to manage a checkbook, manage their money, not buy unnecessary things so that they can build wealth. It's important for our students to be able to know the relationship that they need to have with money. It's very important. And second for me is that we all think that counseling is taboo for Black people. There's nothing wrong with seeing a counselor to heal from the traumatic traumas in our lives. And racism is a traumatic trauma that we need to deal with. You know, we're not dealing with that. We're not dealing from the other traumas of our childhood. So when you get with your mate, male or female, then you already broken, and it's a lot to put on somebody else to fix you.
That's right.
Each individual need to fix self, and then we come together, and then we can build these healthy families, community, and nation for us as a Black people.
Oh, love it. I'm going to say two things, sorry. One, read. Read. Read everything. Don't restrict yourself. Oh, I have to only read about the Black experience. Read everything.
That's right.
Read and understand the world. And if you can't afford to travel, which most of us can't do as young people, you can read. So I would say that first and foremost. Second, don't go to divinity school and become a preacher. Become a lawyer. Because we've got so many young people who want to change the world and they think, oh, Jesus called me to preach. No, Jesus called you to go to law school and you can help your people. Because a room full of preachers can't do as much as a room full of lawyers. And every racial group, whenever they need help, they got a lawyer in the family. They got a room full of lawyers that they can contact. We ain't got nobody but a room full of preachers and they can't do shit. Excuse me. Is this a family?
If I had a new,
We could bleep.
because if I had a new,
Yeah. So don't go go to divinity school, go to law school. Don't get no PhD. What's that PhD going to do for you? Go to law school. Get a Juris Doctorate. Help everybody. Help your community.
Now, Reverend, you must.
Well, actually, I agree. And I would add that a room full of brick masons, plumbers, electrical engineers, contractors will do more for our people than
a room full of preachers.
lawyers. Will do even more so than a room full of lawyers. We need to have skills. Nation building is the mindset we need to raise our children to be about. Is nation building. In the church, we use the term kingdom building. But I think we need to be more specific. Nation building, of having an interest of doing what's in your best interest, is important. And I would agree, great minds think alike most of the time. That they told us when we were young that reading is fundamental. And Grandpa told me that if anything that the white man wants to hide from you, he's going to put it inside of a book.
That's right.
So it's important that we explore by reading. Everything isn't on a YouTube video. Everything isn't going to come on PBS, and certainly not on your primetime network programming and some of the other trash that's given to feed our minds. But we need to read, and we need to read with as much energy that we have.
Excellent.